Folks, summer is here. We flock to the nearest body of water by day and then light up the sky by night. Yet the clearest marker of summertime is the produce. Everything is in season now, from tangles of garlic scapes to freakishly sized leafy greens to the sweet, triumphant return of ripe tomatoes. So what do you do when you're so spoiled with such an abundance of riches? Me? I make saag. Saag has been my long-term go-to order on nearly every Indian takeout menu I come across. A thick curry, saag is spiced with fenugreek leaves, cumin, and coriander, sweetened with onions and tomato, and packed to the gills with simmered greens. Most of the time I see saag, it's made with spinach, that year-round staple. Traditionally though, saag can be made with all sorts of greens, so I went with one of my favorites from early summer, Swiss chard. Chard is super distinctive and has a really interesting flavor profile. It tastes a little bit like both beet greens and spinach, two of its botanical relatives. It's an amazing mix of earthy and sweet. Swiss chard also pairs well with a lot of different summery flavors. Last summer, I made gnocchi with lemon sauce and Swiss chard to highlight its relationship with potatoes and lemon. For saag, I'm sagging in another direction with a different set of flavors. Chard with tomatoes, onion, and cumin works super well. But no joke, I came to realize so does just about everything in this recipe. So let's get into it. For the prep, in my wet grinder, I make a paste out of my spices and aromatics. Ginger, fresh turmeric, green chilies, garlic scapes, cumin, coriander, mustard seeds, fenugreek leaves, amchur powder, salt, mustard oil, and water. Then I separately chop one large onion and 3 smallish tomatoes. With most of this mise en place en place, I can start cooking. I start with about 2 tablespoons of spicy mustard oil in a hot pan before adding the diced onion to saute on medium heat for about 5 to 7 minutes. Once those start to get soft and translucent, I add the paste and swirl that around until the water cooks off and the fond on the pan gets thick and dark in about 5 minutes. The only way to get that tasty layer off the base of the pan is liquid, so I add the tomato and a pinch of salt. As soon as that heats through, I add a couple of cups of water, stir everything together, and let it come to a simmer. Once the curry is simmering, you can drag your spatula across the bottom of the pan and all those tasty bits will reintegrate into the sauce. From here, all you need to do is let this simmer for about an hour, adding in a splash or 2 of water if it gets too thick. While this is cooking, it's time to prep the greens. Chard has 2 components, the leaf and the stalk. Both are delicious. Just simply cut along the crunchy stalk and separate it from the leaves. Now, if you've ever cooked greens, you know that this monster pile of leaves is going to turn into maybe a quarter of this volume once cooked, so plan accordingly. I'm using 2 bunches of this chard and I'm rounding it out with a huge handful of baby spinach for good measure. The more greens, the merrier in this one. I was hoping I could blanch these leaves to retain some of the green color in the final dish, but ultimately that was an unnecessary step. After I blanched the greens, shocked them in ice water, chopped everything up, and introduced them to the curry, I found they needed to simmer a bit longer than their vibrant green color could tolerate. Alas, flavor comes before beauty at the end of the day, but fortunately, I have a plan B in my back pocket. More on that in a few. As soon as the greens are super tender and their flavors are integrated into the curry, I turn off the heat and transfer about half of it into the blender with a half of a can of coconut milk. I blend it until it's mostly smooth but not fully pureed, and mix this back into the remainder of the saag. You can skip this step completely and have a really delicious dish, but blending it does wonders for the final texture, and the coconut milk adds some welcome richness to round out all those flavors. This is ready to eat right now, but I've got a few flourishes to finish this off with first. Remember all those bright colored stalks we set aside when preparing the chard leaves? I grab a couple of them, run my knife through them with a lazy brunoise, and let them cure in lemon juice for about 5 minutes for a quick pickle. As for that elusive green color, well, herbs can do wonders to brighten up the swampy dark colors of a simmered bowl of greens. I happened upon this clamshell of baby chard leaves at the store, and I thought I'd use them the same way. Baby chard leaves are incredible. They're bright with flavor, not very earthy yet, and have this amazing salinity to them. I give these a quick chop and get ready to serve. Onto the plate went the saag curry, then half of a soft-boiled egg, then the chopped baby chard leaves, and a smattering of the pickled chard stems. I made some basmati a little later for good measure. Stop me if you've heard this before, but this really is a perfect dish. All those bright flavors mingle and intensify as this simmers, but still retain that fresh quality of all this beautiful sun-drenched produce. If you ask me, this is exactly what summer cooking is all about. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm going to see you next time. Bye now.